She apologized for asking a stranger for help at a train station. That quiet apology changed both of their lives forever. "I was just asking. I'm sorry." The words came out so quietly that they almost dissolved into the noise of the train station before anyone could truly hear them. Announcements echoed from the ceiling, suitcases rolled across the floor, footsteps hurried past in every direction, yet the small blonde girl standing near the platform felt completely invisible. She tightened the straps of the pink backpacks on her shoulders, as if bracing herself for a blow that had already landed. She stood in front of a man who clearly did not belong to this place in the same way she did. His dark coat was perfectly tailored, his shoes spotless despite the slush outside, and the phone in his hand looked far more expensive than anything she had ever owned. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his blue eyes were sharp, distant, used to looking past people rather than at them. His name was Daniel Rose, though she didn't know that. To her, he was simply someone who looked important enough to know what to do. She had gathered her courage for several minutes before approaching him. She had practiced the words in her head, repeating them silently while her heart pounded so loudly she was afraid it would give her away. But when she finally spoke, everything she had prepared slipped out wrong, smaller than she intended, filled with apology instead of hope. Daniel looked at her, irritation flickering across his face before he could stop it. He had been running late, his thoughts buried in schedules and missed calls, and the last thing he expected was to be interrupted by a child. For a brief moment, he wondered where her parents were, then dismissed the thought just as quickly. "I'm not an information desk," he said curtly, his voice clipped and impatient. The girl flinched, as if she had expected this answer all along. Her blue eyes dropped to the floor, and she nodded quickly, her blonde hair falling forward to hide her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, softer this time, the words barely audible. "I didn't mean to bother you." She stepped back, then turned away before he could say anything else. Her small shoes moved slowly across the wide station floor, each step heavy despite her size. The white dress she wore looked thin and wrinkled, unsuitable for the cold evening air that crept in every time the doors opened. The pink backpacks pulled at her shoulders, making her lean forward slightly as she walked, as if she were already tired of carrying more than a child should. Daniel watched her leave without meaning to. Something about the way she apologized stayed with him, echoing unpleasantly in his mind. Children usually demanded attention or cried when they were refused. This one had apologized for existing in his space. He glanced at his watch, then back at his phone, trying to shake the feeling off. But when he looked up again, his eyes found her small figure disappearing into the crowd, and a strange unease settled in his chest. She wasn't heading toward anyone. No adult was waiting for her. She didn't look back, as if she already knew no one would follow. Around them, the station continued to move, alive and indifferent. Trains arrived and departed. People laughed, argued, embraced, and rushed away. And in the middle of it all, a little girl with pink backpacks walked alone, having just learned once again that asking for help came with an apology attached. Daniel stood exactly where he was for several seconds after the girl disappeared into the moving crowd, his phone still in his hand, the screen dark where a call notification had faded. He told himself there was no reason to keep watching, that children got lost and found again every day, that this wasn't his responsibility. The thought sounded logical, clean, familiar. It was the kind of reasoning that had guided most of his life. Still, his gaze drifted back to the space where she had been standing. Something about the way she had said sorry unsettled him. It hadn't been dramatic or loud, but careful, as if she had already learned that asking for help came at a cost. He frowned slightly, slipping his phone into his coat pocket, his mind replaying her small voice against the loud chaos of the station. He started walking toward the exit, but after only a few steps, he slowed. Through the glass walls near the waiting area, he caught sight of the girl again. She was sitting on a long metal bench, her feet dangling above the floor, the pink backpacks resting heavily against her sides. She wasn't looking around in panic or searching for someone familiar. She simply sat there, hugging the straps, staring straight ahead as if she were waiting for something that might never arrive. Daniel stopped. He told himself he was only checking, only making sure she wasn't in immediate danger. Yet his feet changed direction without conscious decision, carrying him toward her. As he approached, he noticed details he hadn't seen before, the way her white dress was slightly too big, the faint dirt smudge on one knee, the redness around her eyes that suggested she had cried earlier and forced herself to stop. He cleared his throat softly, unsure how to begin. "Hey," he said, lowering his voice. "Where are your parents?" The girl looked up slowly. Her blue eyes were calm but tired, holding none of the panic he expected. She studied his face for a moment, recognizing him immediately, then nodded politely, as if he were someone she had already learned not to expect too much from. "My mom told me to wait here," she said. "When?" Daniel asked. "Today," she replied after a pause. "In the morning." The answer landed heavily. Daniel glanced around instinctively, scanning the station for any sign of an adult looking for a child, but the people around them moved with the same indifference as before. "Has she called you?" he asked. The girl shook her head. "My phone doesn't work," she said quietly. It was hers. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. He sat down on the bench across from her, careful to keep some distance, aware of how large he must seem to her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she answered. "I'm Daniel." She nodded, absorbing the information without comment. "Why did you come to me earlier?" he asked gently. "What were you trying to ask?" Lily hesitated, her fingers tightening around the backpack straps. "I wanted to know which train goes to the hospital," she said. "But then I forgot the name of it." Daniel inhaled slowly, the noise of the station fading around him as her words settled in. "Why the hospital?" he asked. Lily looked down at her hands. "Because my mom is there," she said. "She said if something happened, I should stay here. But it's been a long time." Daniel leaned back slightly, the polished bench suddenly feeling colder than before. The station no longer seemed merely busy. It felt careless. "You shouldn't be here alone," he said, his voice softer now. "I know," Lily replied. "That's why I asked." The simplicity of her answer left him without a response. He looked at her again, really looked, and understood that walking away now would be a choice, not an accident. Whatever meeting he was late for no longer mattered. Whatever plans he had could wait. "All right," he said after a moment. "Let's figure this out together." Lily looked up at him, surprise flickering across her face for the first time. "Really?" she asked, cautiously. "Yes," Daniel said. "I'm here." She nodded slowly, as if storing the word somewhere safe, and for the first time since he had met her, Daniel saw something change in her expression. It wasn't happiness or relief, not yet, but the fragile beginning of trust, forming quietly in the middle of a crowded station that had almost swallowed her whole. They moved through the station together at a slower pace than the crowd around them, Daniel adjusting his steps to match Lily's short stride. He noticed how carefully she walked, keeping close to him without actually holding his hand, as if she didn't yet know whether she was allowed to. The noise of the station seemed louder now, sharper, and Daniel found himself instinctively positioning his body slightly in front of her whenever people passed too close. They stopped near a small cafe by the windows, the smell of coffee and warm bread cutting through the cold air drifting in from outside. Lily glanced at it briefly, then looked away, as though reminding herself not to want things. Have you eaten today?